Every once in a while, you'll come across a translation where you're looking at the English and you can't find Greek behind it. And you go, well, where did this English come from since there's no Greek behind it? Well, the thing I want you to hear very clearly in this blog is that no translation is random. In all the translations I've worked on and those that I've analyzed, I've yet to find a random translation. In other words, there's always a reason for why they include the words that they do. So Romans 8 gives us a good example of this. Starting in Romans 8:31, you have a series of rhetorical questions, and the answer is implied. The reader is supposed to answer it for himself or herself. And you see what happens here. I'm just going to read the NIV. What then shall we say in response to these things, all the things that God has done for us? If God is for us, who can be against us? Well, obviously the answer is no one, but you're, as a statement of faith, supposed to respond. Verse 32, he who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all these things? The answer is, look, of course he will. So again, another rhetorical question. And then we get to verse 33. Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? It's God who justifies. Well, the answer again is obviously because God is justified, then no, there's no one who can legitimately bring a charge against us. You notice the NLT says, who dares accuse us? But look what NLT adds halfway through. No one. For God himself has given us right standing with himself. Where's the Greek behind no one? Well, it's not there. Well, then let's go to verse 34, and this is the main one I wanted to show you. Who then is the one who condemns? You notice there's no highlighting going on. No one. In other words, the NIV answers the question. So back in my argument, there's no such thing as a random translation. You go, well, why did they say no one when it's not in the Greek? And I wasn't on the committee at the time. My guess, the answer was that they wanted to make sure absolutely clear that the answer is no one. And if you read it, the verse without it, who then is the one who condemns? Christ Jesus who died is at the right hand of God. And you kind of left scratching your head just a bit. I said, well, how is this the answer to this question? And you notice that the NLT also adds in no one. And then finally down to verse 35, the last rhetorical question, who shall separate us from the love of God? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? Again, the answer that comes from context, and specifically verse 36, is absolutely no one. So what about this no one in verse 34? Well, I wasn't on the committee when that decision was made, and I don't know if I would have supported it or not. But you can see why it's there. There is a concern that the second half of the verse may not clearly enough for the average reader answer the question at the beginning of the verse. And so the committee added in the answer. Now, certainly the answer is what Paul intended, but it's not random. They were afraid, I'm guessing, they were afraid that there would be some confusion if that question wasn't answered because of the nature of the second half. So whether you agree with the NIV's and the NLT's decision or not, that's not the point I wanted to make. The point I wanted to make is there's no such thing as a random translation. There's always a reason for what you read.